Welcome, data people. We are Zuma. My name is Matt, and this is the Data for Good podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Zuma. Zuma is a dedicated recruitment company focusing on data positions across Berlin. The Data for Good podcast is for the world of data science, analytics, and engineering, giving you a platform to hear the thoughts and opinions of data leaders from Berlin and beyond. Today, we are joined by Christian Rebernik, CEO and co-founder at Tomorrow University of Applied Sciences. Christian, welcome. How are you?
Matt, thank you very much. I'm doing fine. Great to be here.
So it's an honor and a privilege to have you on. For those who don't know who you are, can you give us a short introduction?
Yeah, really briefly. I actually, when I studied, I dropped out because it was too boring. And then I started my first company, which was actually back then an internet agency. And that's where I felt in love with using technology to create solutions and also became more or less a developer, software developer to do that. And that stayed with me for the last 20 years. So over the course of the last 20 years, I had the opportunity to create digital products in very different industries, also in different roles from that perspective. But still, technology is at the heart of whatever I do. Now with Tomorrow, we are building a new kind of university focused actually on helping people to have an impactful career. And what is special about it is that we have our own learning platform, which is designed to learn effective online. And I love to talk more about that, the skills, but also anything when it comes to actually data and data science and how relevant it is.
Yeah, and it's been quite an exciting year for Tomorrow and yourself. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on.
Yeah, as you mentioned this, so Tomorrow our role is still actually it's a startup. Yeah, so we started off to create our own learning platform, and with that we launched actually with a partner university, a first degree program, a master degree program in sustainability, entrepreneurship, and technology, and it was very successful. And as things developed, we decided that we actually want to build our own university, and that's the reason why we last year became the first state-recognized university, the first EdTech was a state-recognized university in Europe. And that's quite exciting, so that we now can provide actually bachelor and master degrees ourselves, and have done that as well. And that led, and that's what you're referring to, actually to a funding round. So we are very happy that we have done a Series A funding round of $10 million in total. Especially during these times, which have been, I think, tough on many startups. We had the opportunity to actually grow, invest, and serve more people for us.
Exciting times ahead. It sounds like a forward-facing educational platform and relevant topics, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk 21st century skills and impactful career, something you're very, very passionate about. So if we were to start simple and we talk about 21st century skills, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, the 21st century skills, this comes a little bit from the World Economic Forum, which researched about the future skills and what are the skills actually which are relevant in the jobs tomorrow, not so much only today. And if you go into what does tomorrow make, and we see also today, AI is taking a lot. Our jobs have changed from knowing things by heart to actually being able to apply things and getting the knowledge which you need and at the point of time you need it and trying to apply that. But beside that, a key part actually, and what we are also focusing on when it comes to 21st century skills, is literally the topic of communicating it impactful. Our world is really highly complex, not just in sustainability, also with technology, but communicating solutions, problems, context to somebody is really important. The second thing, what is really important when it comes to 21st century is collaborating, because very few things can be done alone, but you actually always collaborate with other people in your company. And this is very important, I think, is part of cross-functional work. And so for that, collaboration is really key. And that's a second part. Another part is about self-leadership. So to lead yourself, to being able to reflect yourself, know how you are perceived, get really organized, is really key in today's world. It doesn't matter in which kind of environment you actually live. So self-leadership is another part. And then what we're focusing on is we believe technology. Everybody should
Yeah.
speak the language, more or less.
Yeah.
It makes us all better leaders. It makes us all more effective. We believe also that we are supporting, want to achieve a sustainable society, not just
Yeah.
planet, really sustainable society, which means also organizations, governments, companies, etc. And we believe everybody needs to have an understanding of sustainability and what this actually means and practices in the different fields. And the last part is for us also entrepreneurship, which is about creating solutions, thinking really about how understanding problems, but also thinking about how can you create solutions. And in these skills, what we are doing is we are also breaking it down to things like critical thinking or to data topics. And this we are focusing in all our programs on this kind of 21st century skills, which are relevant for the jobs today, but especially also the jobs which even don't exist eventually yet today.
You mentioned technology and sustainability. I mean, traditionally they've been quite separate. Technology is fast moving, not thinking about the impacts. It's just, can we get it out? Can we be innovative? Sustainability is the opposite. How do we make things that last, that are going to be used over and over again? How are we bringing those two worlds together?
So sustainability in our context, we like to talk more about the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations. We think also sustainability, understanding of sustainability is something which will change and evolve as also our economy, our society evolves. But that's the reason why we also see this as a very diverse perspective. It could be about energy and creating renewable energy. It could be about circular economy. It could be about sustainable business models, which not just care only about profit, but also benefiting actually the society. So there are very different fields when it comes to sustainability, which we think is important. It could be about about your workplace, about cities. It could be about biodiversity, and incorporating that. And we believe, and I think we see this also, that we're moving overall into this direction that it's not one against the other, but actually you can make meaningful companies collaborations actually, sustainable companies. We believe even that far that the next Amazon is a sustainable company and not one which is just focused on first profit. We believe we see also that there's a transition currently in the whole ecosystem happening, is that if you're not a sustainable company, you will also not be able to attract the top talent, because the top talent actually wants to work for companies which are doing also a meaningful contribution. And that leads also to that these companies are at the end more successful, because those are the ones which actually have the top talents.
I think working in recruitment is one of the things that's coming up more and more frequently. Is the most important things that people are looking for in a business are impact, and sustainability is certainly one of those. How can tomorrow and the kind of courses that you're running, how does that support people getting jobs in these sustainable industries?
Yeah, so all our programs are really focused on educating you. And so other way around, let's put it about our thesis of change. If our goal is to help people have an impactful career, a little bit like yours. We're coming from that part that this is really the ultimate goal, because that's also our theory of change, of actually accelerating to a sustainable society which will be driven by empowered individuals. So, but what does this mean again? And here comes from us, it's a formula of 3 pieces. The first one is actually, we believe it's important that you know your purpose, your values. Because that drives you. This will allow you to have a higher perseverance. You will be able to overcome bigger challenges if you're clear why you do the things you do. The second part is actually that you build up the competence and the skills which you need actually to have an impact, to maximize this impact. Third part is about the community and the network. We are human beings, we are social beings. It's all about actually being able to collaborate, being able to ask for help, being able, maybe looking also for jobs is something where you often work through relationships. So it's purpose, and we say multiplied by competence, multiplied by network. That's how you have an impactful career. And our full purpose as a university is actually supporting that and enabling you as much as possible so that this becomes possible. And we are doing this in all our programs in very different ways. This starts in a program with an orientation phase where it's about mission identification, helps you to identify your values, your path, your goal, talking to this, being exposed a little bit about this actually, also with colleagues or friends, for example, or talking about the skills we personalize based on your goals. What are the challenges? And this is with us, it's challenge-based learning. Which skills are relevant and how can you learn them? And then throughout the whole program, we're trying to connect people. Yeah. Actually, interestingly, the word university comes from universitas, which is Latin and stands for a community of learners and teachers. And actually, the people change their roles. Sometimes you're a teacher, sometimes you're a learner. And we believe that is also faster true. We want to be creating a community of smart-minded people. And sometimes it's not so clear if you are maybe learning or if you may be teaching, because you help others. And this is a very important part, I think, actually, of learning. Is not just only receiving information, it's applying it, but also giving information. And actually, this giving information and helping others is a very important part on reflecting of what you have learned and condensing what matters to you.
Yeah, I think we've all experienced that when you teach someone else, you think about something differently.
Yeah, it gives you just a different perspective. And just if you're just trying to overcome a problem, it's one thing. But if you're helping somebody else to overcome that problem, yeah, you just switch your mind and think about what actually matters for this person now. How can I help him to achieve that? Yeah, and that's when a lot of things then really happen, and it causes mastery learning. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it sounds like community education that's being set up at tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a very important part. The three reasons, or a couple of reasons, but the key reasons why people come to us is, on the one hand side, the community, with a global community of learners, which coming together to exchange, especially also data. It's such a data, AI, it's such big topics. Yeah.
Yeah.
To exchange best practices. Then it's obviously about the purpose and the learning content, the programs itself. And the third part is always about how you learn with tomorrow, and which gives you also the flexibility to do it part-time, actually while you're working, for example, so that you prepare your next stage, eventually also into a different job, grow in your career, etc. Yeah, and so that's what we also want to support. We have definitely many people also who switch careers, want to work in more sustainable environments, want to prepare for that step, as an example.
Yeah, it's obviously you're experiencing great success. How is it different? Why is it so powerful from online learning and a couple of meetups? Why is it so much more meaningful and powerful to be in such?
I'm a big fan of meeting in person.
Yeah.
I mentioned we're social beings. It's great to touch people and hug and celebrate and have a joke. And I think nothing replaces that really. A video conference is great because it makes things possible. It creates accessibility. You save time on commuting, for example. So there are a lot of benefits, but it's a difference. It's just something different, and I wouldn't compare it one-on-one. Yeah. What we are doing and why we are saying we're an online university, so you can learn everything online, is because of the benefits of the flexibility and doing this from any place in the world. Yeah. And for that reason, we can connect you with people all around the world, which you maybe otherwise wouldn't meet. Not that easy, but maybe not meet at all. So that's we can support in that way. And we're trying to create a social experience around this, also using different tools and just traditional video conferences, which give you also a feeling of who is there in the room, who's there in the campus in our case at this point of time. And we are working on advancing that framework actually to make it a more social experience. But we are fully aware this is not replacing the in-person experience completely when it comes to relations. And that's the reason why we say you can study with us fully online, but we also have events which are optional, and we have learning groups in all the different regions. So talking about Berlin, we have here a lot of learners actually which come together. They go, I don't know, spinning in the dark room, and then they go learning. But it's really great, and that they are very, very vibrant community. So, but in that way, you have the flexibility, you have the benefit on, building deep bonds, building even friendships, having fun doing sports together. Or going to events. We had one also here at the Google headquarters here in Berlin, which was really great. again, coming together with all the academics, experts, mentors, other students, also from other countries, or with people flying in from the US and Asia, events. They're bigger, they're big weekend events, literally, and then everybody comes together. But you don't need to. If you're living, we have people living in the countryside, remote, having responsibilities, and they don't want to travel, so it's also fine. It's also totally fine. They don't need to travel. They can learn from anywhere, and that's the benefit of it. Yeah. From perspective.
Most people think of university at the start of your career. This sounds sort of a little bit different. It's more like adding to your career or changing, pivoting. What kind of success stories have you seen?
So absolutely, it depends on the programs. So we started with master programs, and master students are typically professionals. They are in their career already. They have started. They have a couple of years of experience, maybe several years of experience even. Yeah, and for them, it's really the typical ones we've seen is the people who want to switch to a more meaningful job. We have seen people who want to drop out of a company and literally want to start their own startup and want to prepare for that. And we have people who actually want to grow in their career, become leaders, for example, as an example. In bachelor, it's a little bit different. In bachelor, we have students who are typically earlier on in their career, they want to become experts. For example, in AI, we have a bachelor of science and artificial intelligence and sustainable technologies. So they are at the beginning of their career, they want to build those skills, becoming actually eventually a data scientist, becoming a data engineer is for them more the first step and the goal in this case. With bachelor in responsible entrepreneurship, people again at the early after school, maybe they've collected a little bit of experience, and then they want to learn about business, but have in mind that they want to become an entrepreneur eventually later. So there are different aspects to that. And when it comes to for the master class, we have the first graduates because the program is 1 to 1.5 years. Yeah. So and that's tremendous. It's very pleasing actually to see all the success of our students. We have 1/3 actually did create a startup.
Oh wow.
San
A third.
Francisco did get funding actually of 2.6 million. We have other people who did create a startup from Spain together with Norway, where they have the CTO and coming together and creating, for example, Perfect Farm, which is a startup helping farms to become more sustainable. We have one person in Sweden who has actually founded a education startup for migrants to learn English and the language. There are a lot. From one person, she went into the logistics in the shipping industry and helps harbor ships to become more greener, behaving using AI actually to have just arrive in harbor in time and having needing less time driving in front or being in front of the harbor, and therefore saving fuel. So many success stories in that case, but then same is true for the growth path. So we see that many students actually directly had a job upgrade in their career, which was really great. But also we saw that people who came from consulting actually started and then just changed their job and said, I'm done with consulting, I want to do something more meaningful. So again, very different perspectives from that role. Yeah, we have engineers in the master classes, actually software developers, but also data scientists who say they aspire to become CTOs and want to hold more leadership position. So it's quite a broad variety actually of students, which makes those interesting from that perspective to work together.
Yeah. If I'm a senior data engineer, I'm in a secure business, I'm doing okay, I've got a family, and I'm thinking this is too risky for me. What would you tell them?
Yeah, so I have my neighbors, they're working in a traditional, well-established company. So I have a couple of them. It's really funny because, and they work in, one is in a large energy company, which is well-established, pays really well. Yeah. There is no reason to change, but then there is not much development for him either. And he's every time, complaining. He's doing this for 10 years. Think about his health. And I'm not sure what is more riskier. Being frustrated every day of your life, or taking the step and maybe having actually something which is meaningful. And from my perspective, and this is actually coming to this, but I think it's always great and very important actually that you take the leap of faith and work on something which you're passionate about and see where you fit, because I think the opportunities are out there. So I think always you should strive for the change if you feel there's change needed. And I myself, I was at a large company of 3,000 people. I was there from 30 to 3,000. Yeah, so I made this journey as a software engineer there. And I became eventually into a leadership role, but it was very clear somehow that's the tip of my career. Yeah.
Mm.
And I moved out and I said, hey, I don't care actually about the money anymore. I earn already enough in the first place. For me, it's more
Yeah.
important to learn. And I prioritized learning before actually money. And I took a pay cut, but I went into a job which was super exciting. It helped me to achieve for me the next step of learning and growth. And it was really great from that perspective. And that's the reason why I'm saying I would recommend at any point of time to prioritize learning and growth over money. Money will follow, and also the comfort will again follow. I have no doubt about
Mm.
that. Again, this is a personal thing,
Yeah.
but a personal experience. Yeah.
Yeah, we must say there's nothing wrong with staying in big businesses and making a great career if that's not your priority. But I don't know how this saying translates into different languages, but there's no smoke without fire.
Yeah.
And if there's a thought that's going on that it's not right, then there's probably a reason for that.
Yeah.
And to explore
I think
with
it's true also if you're in a startup and you find out this is not the fit for you, which can also be the case, yeah, then maybe a more mature environment is the right thing, because you don't want to, I don't know, do so many things. In startup, sometimes
Mhm.
there's so many responsibilities. You take care of the bugs, you take care of customer service, eventually taking tickets in, you take care of actually working hard on the actual features you want to do. And there are many things, and then maybe do leadership and lead the Scrum, I don't know, Scrum pros, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe it's too much. You want to focus on something, and maybe a different environment is better. And I think it's very important that you actually can thrive in an environment. And we are, and this is, I think, from my perspective, many of us are in a lucky position of self-fulfillment. Yeah, so we
Hmm.
have a certain security. Yeah, we don't have a security problem in our day-to-day life quite often, especially in technology. Yeah. We don't be afraid of having no food. We don't be afraid of anything. Yeah? So we're in a self-fulfillment phase, which is on the top of the of the Maslow pyramid. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're there, you should also do exactly that for self-fulfill yourself. Yeah, which is looking for what fulfills yourself, actually asking these questions, and then trying to pursue that. Yeah. Um, Data engineers. I know data engineers which been frustrated because the company couldn't provide data or didn't have the right data architecture to actually process the data. So maybe you want to work on something where a company which has a lot of data, and it's maybe
Hmm.
more interesting for that to experiment, and that's where you want to learn because that's an interesting problem for you. Maybe it's about you're interested into AI and to say, hey, I'm here data plumber and just connect APIs and make
Yeah.
sure that everything works smoothly, but I'm really caring about AI. And I think always, again, prioritize the growth, prioritize your interest above it. And yes, maybe don't do it like every day, but
Yeah.
that's also the case. If you have identified what your true north is, what you actually want at a point of time, it won't change every 3 months. It will change only, over a longer period of time.
Yeah. So it's the old saying that if you stay still, you're going backwards.
Yeah.
So we we're innately curious beings and
Yeah.
want to learn and develop.
I personally believe in total learning is actually joy. But I mean, not everyone says that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I believe we're learning our whole life. I mean, I don't know about you, but there are so many industries I've touched based. I have before N26. I haven't done a bank before. As it was the first time, and I was their CTO, and we created a whole core bank system. I have never had no experience in creating a core bank system. I had no idea about AI, and we used AI, for example, to classify transactions and create all the statistics, which was really great. But
Mm.
back then, no clue about it, so I needed to learn about it. Yeah, but it was not just there. The truth. I went into the health system. Yeah, I had no clue about, I don't know, medical certifications and the processes required in that regard. Yeah, um,
Yeah.
how to ensure end-to-end encryption for health records. Yeah, and a lot of questions. Yeah, which I needed to learn, and I think even there was no single job. I had to learn a lot. Um,
Mm.
And I think that's actually a great way of learning, by having a problem and then starting to say, hey, how can I learn that? How can I solve that problem? Who can I ask in a nutshell? That's the reason why I mentioned our framework of learning is actually challenge-based. So you bring in the challenge, we help you to learn the relevant content, we give you the relevant experts to ask, and we connect you with a community which are working on this on similar topics, so that you can exchange about finding the right solutions. And this is, you, in this way, you learn something, you apply it, and then you help others. So that's when you master it. And this is something which sticks, that you don't forget it anymore. This is how you really become competent.
How do you start that kind of process of opening someone up to this way of thinking without giving too much away what the course is? But how do you start with that?
So for us, it's really the purpose. You don't do something if there's no purpose. If there's no problem, if there's nothing, if everything's fine, why should you change at all? Why is there something? So that's the reason why, for us, it really matters to ask about the why. Yeah, and we discuss the why. And only once you have a why this matters, why this is actually relevant to you, then, and how does this fit into your perspective, your values, then you are interested also to solve it. Yeah. And for sure, don't get me wrong, there are things you sometimes need to do, and there are things which are not like everything like what is possible. But overall, I think the bunch of your purpose should align, that the problem should be interesting to you to fix. And sometimes you find interest in things. There are always, I think, you can phrase a problem also that it's interesting or boring. But I think it's very important overall just to find this kind of purpose, like understand that it's an interesting problem, see the perspective why this is relevant, maybe to the society to solve this problem. Yeah, I like this metaphor of the brick builder. You're a stonemason. You lay bricks. And that's one perspective to see it, but it's very frustrating just to lay bricks, But then there's this other person who is building actually the home of the God, because he's building a church, and he will build actually the home of many people, and he does the same. He lays bricks, but it's a very different perspective on why this is relevant actually to lay the brick. It's a bigger picture, bigger understanding why this becomes relevant. And I think this is the important aspect when it comes to actually learning as well.
Most people won't sit there, and we don't have time to think. Often the time, many distractions going on. And how would you advise someone to take the first step of thinking about their purpose, sitting back and pivoting and becoming a better version and improving their career in particular?
So join our mission identification challenge on our website. That's definitely a good first step, because it's exactly about this kind of defining for yourself this direction, these values, and it's part again of our programs to help build your dream team. Think about who can help you and actually support you on your career path. There are a couple of things you can do in that direction, but what anybody I think can do and start is actually to be open to it, to discuss with friends, and reflect on it. I think this is always a good first start to think about yourself and self-reflect. As mentioned, self-reflection, self-leadership is a key of the competence of today. Again, if you have this kind of coming to the Maslow pyramid here, to the self-fulfillment part, that's really important skill, I think, to learn. And I had a really great talk with one of the leading chief people officers as well. She was also at also at N26, and she said this is one of the most important skills actually she's looking into any employee she's hiring, is actually this kind of level of self-reflection, self-leadership.
Tell us a little bit more about
that. So if she does hiring, if she's recruiting, she's asking other people also about how they perceive themselves and how they think they are perceived by others. if this is matching actually, for example, is this, do they know what they want? Do they know why they don't want something? Yeah. And this is one of the key parts actually, so that she can make sure whoever joins, they know how they are perceived by others. They know if they interact with others, how they can convince eventually. They also know that they will be the ones who, again, can persevere because they know what they do from that perspective. Yeah? And they also know if things are not working out, how to take care of themselves.
Searching for the why.
Again, I think you don't need to, I think it's a danger to overemphasize it on it. Yeah, I think it's a little bit walk and talk. You need to talk about it. It's something you can discover. It's something also, my why has changed, and definitely with kids, these things change typically. It's totally fine that it changes. It just doesn't change so frequently. But for me, sustainability, I worked for 20 years ago, I worked in gambling. Yeah, I worked for a sports betting company. I wouldn't do this today anymore. But back then I had not a problem at all. I wasn't even thinking about it at all. It was just fine. It's a great technology challenge. Gambling back then was like pornography. It was super great technology problems. I loved it. A lot of data, a lot of challenges. We had the first to deal with cybersecurity with threats. We had the first to do with live betting. It was really interesting from a technology perspective. Today, I wouldn't do it anymore because it doesn't go in line with my purpose. There would be no way. But again, this changes. That's what I meant. Yeah, it's different at different stages of your life. You have different interests. Yeah, and it's also a little bit what you need to explore. You need to test things and say, hey, does this resonate with me actually? Yeah. So if the earlier in the career, the less you know, the more you need to explore. The later, typically. Same with relationships. I worked at Parship. Yeah. At the beginning, with the first relationship, great, I have a girlfriend. With the next relationship, you all know, oh, that doesn't work for me anymore. The more relationships you have, the more you know about yourself and what is important for you, and therefore also better in sorting that out, actually, what is a meaningful relation. The same is true with employers, by the way. I think with employers, the first one, great, you have a job, you earn money. Done job, I'm happy. The second one, you know already that you want to work in a culture which is open-minded. The third one, you want to work in a company where your opinion is actually heard and you can have more freedom. Yeah, and this I don't know, you want to work in an international company more with more diverse. There are different perspectives of this, but it's just saying with every relation, you know better, more about yourself.
No, absolutely, and we could talk about this for hours and hours, but I am conscious of time. Fascinating stuff. One final question. AI is super relevant. Sustainability, we've seen the rise in green tech. How important is it to keep your finger on the pulse in these areas and not get left behind?
So, one of the classes I'm giving is technology revolutions, and a part of that is actually discuss the large cycles of technology and how it changes actually things. And they were talking about general purpose technology, which is defined by the how actually how big the cost reduction is on something. For example, I don't know, machines, how they actually have enabled to create I don't know, combustion engines, how they enabled us to travel. How less it costs before, and how faster it now is, how cheaper it is. And these cycles, they get shorter. And the shorter the cycle gets means also the time for your skills gets shorter, where they are valued. Yeah. This is also the reason why maybe your grandparents had one job for their whole life, but we see this actually that people start to change jobs more often now. But they also need to continuously learn more actually from that perspective. So from my perspective, what we see with AI, I think that's, and I asked this question I think yesterday in a class, but everybody thinks this is one of the biggest changes in the next 10 years on their careers. So I believe also sustainability is a key. And the great thing, I asked the same question 1 year ago about AI. Nobody would say this that. Yeah, it was not so tangible. ChatGPT really made it very tangible. There's a change coming up. Yeah, because everybody could test it. There was no cost barrier. ChatGPT make it open, made it really free that you can test and explore that. That was a big thing for people to feel that. For sustainability, it's depending a little bit on the country, on the situation. Some people they feel it because they have directly experienced the problems of sustainability.
Yeah.
Some people less. Yeah. I think personally, sustainability is today not anymore as do you want to learn it? Nice to have. But I think it's the other way around. If you want to have a successful career, you need to know and understand sustainability. But I think both those actually competences are really key for an impactful career from my perspective, and also will prepare you on the other hand side to be successful in your life.
Absolutely. Stay relevant. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Christian. That's all we have time for today, unfortunately. But yeah, thank you for your time and your rich insights.
Matt, thank you very much for inviting me. It was a pleasure being here.
Yeah, great. Really, really great conversation. And to the listeners, always, don't forget to like and share so we can reach as many people as possible. But it is bye from us. Thanks once again, Christian. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Ciao for now.